I think we are ready. We are live. So welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are coming from in the world. I'm very excited to introduce to you today Ezekiel Nyanfor, and this is the last talk of the day, and I know it's going to be a very, very special one. So Ezekiel is going to be talking to us about climate change literacy for climate action, and I'm personally very excited for this talk. So I will just introduce Ezekiel really quickly, and then I will pass the virtual floor on to him. So Ezekiel is a 22-year-old Liberian youth climate activist, entrepreneur, founder and executive director of the Liberian Youth for Climate Actions, the LYCA, which is a registered youth-based NGO residing in the Republic of Liberia. He is a leader of the climate change activities, including World Environment Day, World Earth Day, and World Conservation Day. He hosted the first National Clean Air Day held in Liberia. So a very accomplished person for such a young age, and I'm really, really grateful for him being here today. So Ezekiel, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone listening to me today. I'm so excited to be on this platform, the Earth Action Hub, and I'm glad to be the last person to speak on this event. It's always good to be the last, most especially when you have so many excitement from the beginning and so many great people on this platform. And we are here to talk about climate change education, how this like we all read, the issue of climate education is very much important to we accomplishing the Paris Climate Agreement, which talk about Article 12, spoke about the issue of climate actions, climate change education, and how capacity building is also relevant to we all achieving this agreement. When got involved into climate change education, climate change advocacy in the year November 2019. That was the first time I saw the word climate change, and I decided to go and search on it because I wasn't taught about climate change education in school, both primary and secondary. And knowing that this is a serious issue that we are faced with as a global society, I decided to get involved into climate advocacy in 2020 during the year of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that was a very difficult year for me because we had the issue of the coronavirus all around the world. Nobody wants to hear anything about climate change, but rather everyone is focused with the pandemic. So I decided to do so many awareness on the social media with my colleagues as well. But I had so many negative feedbacks from my peers, both on the social media and in person. And some of those feedback I got from them during the start of my advocacy was the issue of they blogging me on the Facebook pages and removing me from in various chat rooms on WhatsApp, Telegram, and the various chat rooms that we have on the various social media. And the reason for which they were removing me is because they never had any idea of what I was talking about. They were ignorant to climate education, same as me when I started it as well. So because of them, because of their reactions, I decided to focus my advocacy on climate literacy. And when I started it, I convinced more young people to join me. And at the end result, we were able to establish the Liberian Youth for Climate Actions. And our NGO have trained so many young people in the climate advocacy space, and we are gaining the momentum here in Liberia, knowing that 80 to 90% of our population are illiterate towards climate education. And going towards COP26 this year, November, I'm calling on all stakeholders, government agencies, government leaders, world leaders to focus their attention and prioritize climate and environmental literacy. This is the only medium through which we can achieve the Paris Climate Agreement, which talk about Article 12, Action for Climate Empowerment. We cannot take any actions towards achieving this goal that are focusing on until we have more people in the know of what is happening around them. Today, we are on this platform of Earth Action Hub, providing information to the global society on how everyone can take actions toward achieving the Paris Climate Agreement. And this is also a means of climate literacy or climate education. Everyone that have appeared on this platform have educated each and every one of us on how they are taking actions in their various locality when it comes to climate and environmental works. We need more of this to be around every time so that people who are denying that climate change exists can know that there are many people in the world that are taking actions toward climate change and environmental protection. As an individual, I have decided to commit my time towards climate education. Our NGO have embarked on the production of a toolkit that climate, we title Africa Climate Ambassador Toolkit. We are aware that the African continent is mostly affected when it comes to climate disasters, when it comes to loss and damage, but we emit little or no greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Therefore, we need to prioritize the issue of climate education. This can help us to build resilient communities. This can help us to mitigate and adapt and restore our climate. Climate restoration education is also important part of climate advocacy. Climate restoration is a tail leg to climate actions, which include adaptation, mitigation, and restoration. We can only restore our climate through climate literacy. We can only adapt to climate change through climate literacy. And we can only mitigate climate impacts through climate literacy. You can never do what you don't know. So awareness is paramount. So when we have all those technologies and we know how to use them, that is the literacy we are talking about. This climate literacy should be backed by civic engagement. Government need to give the young people the space to discuss what is affecting them the most. They cannot decide on our fate when we are not at the table to make our own choices, our own decision. That is why the young people are pushing climate literacy this coming COP26 because we're aware now what is happening around us. And because of this awareness, we are engaging our leaders, we're engaging community people on how every one of us can come together and make the right decision, that is to prioritize climate education. This can only work when we, as global citizens, with solidarity, we can all stand up for climate education. We can all call our leaders, our government across the world to make climate education as a subject being taught in school, not as a sideline part of geography. We want climate education to be a separate subject placed in curriculum across the world that young people who are coming up will know what to do, will know what action they can take when they start to see changes, impacts of climate change in their environments. When you are aware that something is awaiting you and you know how to combat that problem, then you can overcome any challenges you are facing. And that is the importance of climate literacy and environmental education because it helps us to be aware and it helps us to prepare ourselves for whatsoever disasters that are with us if we fail to meet the Paris Agreement. which of course, I'm optimistic that with climate education, we can never fail. We can overcome whatsoever challenges that we are faced with today. Today, we are also calling on all young people to stand with us, to stand with F Action Hub, that we can work together to make sure that we provide similar platforms for every young person, not only me, not only those that appear on this platform today, but there are many young people, especially in Africa, that are providing solutions, that are taking actions through climate literacy, educating young people across the world, educating the older people in their communities on what to do. Climate literacy is very much key to we achieving the Africa we want, because we need to build a resilient Africa. We need to build a resilient world. Building back better and going forward must be centered around climate and environmental literacy. We can never and will not build back better when people are not aware how to build back better. Only climate and environmental literacy can help us to be aware on how to build back better. We are talking about a green economy. We are talking about financing clean energy. All these things should center around climate literacy. The only way we can innovate those technologies that we are talking about is when we are aware of what is happening around us. Yesterday was International Biodiversity Day, and with education, with climate education, we know that climate change affects biodiversity hugely. So if we as young people, we as global citizens are not educated on what we can do to stop and to overcome climate change, biodiversity will always be destroyed. There will be huge loss in biodiversity. So climate education does not only center around mitigation and adaptation or restoration, it's also centered around the society that we are in, clean energy, biodiversity losses, and protecting the ecosystem. So we need this kind of education in our various schools and universities across the globe, because we are trying to change the economy that we have now to a different economy. Therefore, people must be aware of what kind of economy they are going to enter into. And with climate education backed by civic engagement, we can prepare ourselves for the green economy. Without this kind of education, we cannot prepare ourselves. Attitude changes can only happen when people are constantly engaged and are educated on what to do and what not to do. Lifestyles that we are exhibiting today is because of what we were taught when we were coming up. We were taught that we are able to live the kind of life we are living and what we are doing is good. But today, we are aware that the life we live over the past years have placed us in a condition that we cannot handle. But we can also overcome what we are faced with today by changing our lifestyles. And our lifestyles can only be changed by educating us, by making us to know what we can do and what we will do. Today, I will climax with this talk that F Action Hub has provided a global platform for each and every one of us to take the actions and to continue taking the actions that we are taking in our communities. This is one of the biggest educational platforms that we have, and that we should make a very good use of it. This platform should provide space to more African youth to come and tell their stories on what they are doing every day, because we are faced with so many issues in our communities as Africans, and our story need to be told, and what we are doing every day need to be spread around the world. Today, I want to say a very big thank you to F Action Hub and the team that provide this platform for me. And I'm saying this, that without climate literacy, we cannot achieve the Paris Climate Agreement. And Article 12, which talk about action for climate empowerment, has already provided us the key to achieving this agreement that we signed. But we have closed our eyes on Article 12 and are focusing on different things. I'm calling world leaders that we should go back and look at Article 12, and that is the best solution to achieve the Paris Climate Agreement, which center around capacity building, international relations, and providing spaces for youth and older people to make their voices heard. Thank you very much for the time.
Ezekiel, thank you so much. Your words are so powerful, and they really, your emotion comes through the screen, and I think we really all resonate and understand what you're saying and how important it is. And education really is the first step to taking action. Like you say, if we don't understand the issues we are trying to tackle, how can we begin? So climate literacy is paramount. It's crucial, and you're right, it needs to come from a higher level. So thank you so much for sharing all of those words. I'm just going to ask a few questions from the participants, if that's okay. There's lots of people in the chat really being inspired by your words, so it's great to see that. So a question from Tuba, are there countries which have adopted some climate education as a separate component from geography in their schools' education? Maybe you can talk about that in relation to African countries.
All right, thank you very much. When it comes to Africa, we have not yet made climate education a subject being taught in school. Probably in the Western world, we have climate education, but this kind of education is not backed by civic engagement. We are educating young people, but we are not telling them how they can take the actions. We don't only need the education, we need the space. We need to know how to implement what education that we have. Education which is backed by civic engagement, and we know how to meet our leaders and have the space to discuss issues that are affecting us, then we can make the difference when it comes to achieving the Paris Climate Agreement.
Thank you. I wonder if you can give any advice to young people who, if they feel let down by their governments and the systems that are put in place to provide these education systems, do you have any advice for young people who want to make the change happen themselves when the government isn't providing these changes?
Okay, for young people across the world, what I have to say is that we are the last to solve this problem of climate change, and we are the first to be affected severely by the impacts of climate change. When our generation failed to solve this climate crisis, this emergency, it means that the entire world has failed. So this is the only issue that our generation have to face. And I'm glad that I'm within this generation to face this crisis. And we all should be glad that we are part of this generation to solve this climate emergency. When we do solve this emergency, it means that we are going down into history for solving the biggest emergency Earth has ever faced with since the inception of this world. What I have to say to you is that when the government are not listening to you, remember that we as young people, we are listening to each other and we are inspiring each other. We are giving each other hope that even without the government involvement, we are still solving the crisis. We are still making impacts in our communities. We shouldn't stop. We should engage schools, provide extracurricular activities for climate education, and talk to schools, carry on consultation with schools, with students, ask them what they want, ask them whether they want climate education. And trust me, they need it more than we do. So when they agree that they need this kind of education, and you consult with all those schools, then you can have a team of young people from various schools going to their national government and telling them that as an individual, as an activist, I've been advocating for climate education, but today I'm not the one here to speak to you. These are students who are here. These are schools who are here to speak to you that they need climate education. We are only advocating for this, but we cannot make this happen. Only schools and students can make this happen. So you need their support.
Thank you, Ezekiel. And you have faced a lot of knockbacks and denial and people not supporting you or climate change. Do you have any advice for people who experience this as well? And how do you engage those people who they don't want to know about climate change, or they don't believe, or it seems like too big a problem to try and solve? How do you keep pushing and keep having that conversation to those people?
Thank you. When I started my advocacy, I experienced the worst case scenario for my peers, and that was me being blocked on the Facebook pages because I constantly used to share links of climate tips on the timeline and shared in various chat rooms, and I was therefore removed from all those chat rooms. But what I want you to understand is this. This is what you will face when you have an ignorant society towards climate change. This is what you will face when you have a climate illiterate society. They are not aware, they are ignorant. So you don't have to blame them. You don't blame them, you don't get vexed with them. They should be your inspiration. They should be the reason why we should make climate education mandatory as a subject taught in school. Because without they being aware of the urgency of this emergency, they will not support you. But when you keep on doing what you are doing within your communities, and they are seeing the impact, they are seeing the changes, they are seeing the works being done, tomorrow they will come to you and tell you that I want to join your team. I want to become a climate activist. How can I be part of you? And that is how you know that you are making progress in your advocacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Just one last question. I'd like to know how you keep positive and how you maintain your strength and how you keep going, because it is a very overwhelming and difficult fight that we are fighting, and it can be exhausting. So I'd just like to know what keeps you going and how you stay positive.
When it comes to my positivity, is that I'm aware that my generation is the only generation to solve this problem. There's no other generation that will come after me that will solve this problem. So whenever I see that things are not moving how I want it to be, then I tend to ask myself, should I stop doing what I'm doing? Should I give up? Or should I continue? Then I answer myself by saying, if I give up on what I'm doing, who else will solve this crisis? It means that I'm leaving a planet that no one can live on. that generations after me cannot live on this kind of planet. And I have to leave my children to this kind of planet. There are so many questions that they will ask me. Why they say that during your time, you never solved this crisis. You never prepared us for this kind of crisis. I don't want to bang my head down tomorrow and say, I gave up. But I want to say to them tomorrow that the planet that you are in today, that is livable, that is habitable, is a planet that I fought for to keep. It's a planet that I protected for you. It's a planet that I kept for you to live in. So today, we are already heroes and heroines of Earth because of the works that we are doing. Tomorrow, we will only get our certificates from our children, our awards from our children, our awards from the generation to come. Whatsoever awards that we have now, it is just a mere award by papers that we are receiving from events that we attend. But the actual awards that we will receive is the thank you, is the hug that we receive from our children appreciating us that we actually did what we could do. We did what our fathers didn't do. Because if they have prepared a good planet for us, we will not have an emergency or a crisis that we are faced with today. But they have failed us, so we too cannot fail generation to come. We should always remain positive that with us, all around the world, young people, we are the one that making this case an international concern. It is because of us that this has become an international concern. It will be because of us that this crisis will be solved. I have seen so many young people all across the world. I have interacted with some of them, and one word they kept telling me is that this is our problem to solve. One word they kept telling me is that this is our crisis, and we must solve this crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ezekiel. You speak with such passion, and it's incredible to watch. And it just, reminds me that this is why we created Earth Action Hub, to share your stories like yours and your passion, and to remind each other that we are not alone in our fights for the planet. We are together. We are stronger together. Earth Action Hub is a community. And we will achieve more together globally, because we cannot fight this on our own. So I just want to thank you so much for coming here today and sharing your passion and your wisdom. It's been a true honor to listen to you speak, and I thank you as well for the work that you are doing in Liberia. It's so important, and I just hope that you keep going, and remember that you are now part of the Earth Action Hub family and community, and we are here for you. You are here for us, always. And there's lots of people in our chat, a lot of love for you and being inspired for you. So amazing that you have inspired so many people today, which is why we are doing this. So amazing that you've are the last talk of Earth Action Hub, the first one, and it was an honor to have you kind of wrap up an incredible weekend and a very important message for us to finish on. So Ezekiel, thank you so much for being here. I'm beyond grateful for your time. So please come back and speak more, because our participants have really been touched by your words. So thank you so much. And have a
thank you.
Wonderful rest of your...
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you to all our participants.